the runoff in Texas's 28th district between conservative Democrat and incumbent Henry Cuellar and progressive challenger Jessica Cisneros is unfortunately still too close to call. But that hasn't stopped him from preemptively declaring victory. Now, here's where we're at as we speak. So there's a graphic showing you that Henry Cuellar has 50.2% of the vote, and Jessica Cisneros has 49.8% of the vote. And so it's a very, very close call. CNN reports that the same precincts, but with slightly less percentage of the votes reporting and 2 additional votes for Cuellar, putting him 177 votes ahead of Cisneros so far. Now, the results haven't changed since this morning, and no outlet has called the race. No outlet has called the race. But it doesn't matter for Cuellar because he has already declared victory. In a tweet, he says, "The votes are in, the margin will hold. We have won by 177 votes." So, Cenk, before I get to more details, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so that's a total Trump move. In fact, Trump advised Dr. Oz to declare victory, even though they're going to a recount in Pennsylvania when it was super close. And Dr. Oz, right-wing Republican, wouldn't do it. But Henry Cuellar, on a much narrower margin, was like, yeah, immediately, I won, let's end this election. Now, it makes sense that Cuellar did a Trump move because Cuellar is a 100% right-winger. He is, the NRA, I believe, gives him a perfect score. He's totally against gun control.
Anti-choice.
He's 100% anti-choice. He's voted to defund Planned Parenthood. He's voted against Roe v. Wade legislation in Congress.
His home and office were raided by the FBI for being involved with Azerbaijan and potentially taking foreign bribes.
Yeah, and so this is important. You won't hear this in any other media. Nancy Pelosi endorsed Cuellar.
Yep.
And James Clyburn, one of the most corrupt members of Congress. The rest of the media pretend that he's a liberal, or on the left. What are you talking about? Clyburn is taking millions of dollars in corporate cash throughout his career. He does everything that his corporate donors tell him to. So he's like, oh, you're anti-choice. You might vote against voting rights. You might betray every democratic principle we have. You don't mind kids getting massacred as you vote with the NRA. I love it, Clyburn says. I love it, Nancy Pelosi says. They went out of their way to endorse Cuellar. And Cuellar has a much lower chance of winning the general election because he's under FBI investigation. But Pelosi and Clyburn said, we don't care if we lose the seat. We don't care if he wins and he votes exactly with the Republicans. He's more corrupt than Cisneros, so we love him.
That's right.
So go ahead, Nancy Pelosi, answer the goddamn question. Why did you endorse him? Why did you endorse and why did you desperately want to put an anti-choice legislator, pro-gun legislator into Congress? Explain yourself. Now, of course, she went on 4 different national media shows right after Roe v. Wade decision was revealed that they were going to overturn it. They asked her about Roe v. Wade, but they didn't ask her, why is the one person you're campaigning for anti-choice? Because that would disrupt the powerful. So you don't want the media to ever question the powerful. No, Nancy Pelosi is evil and she's supporting taking away women's rights. Yep. And so is James Clyburn. Those are facts.
Now, Jessica Cisneros has a call to action. So if you happen to live in this district, there is something you can do. She writes, this is a close race. We have a call to action. Track your mail-in ballot here. So if you have a Twitter account, you can click on that link. If your mail-in ballot was rejected, call our voter protection hotline. And she provides a number, 956-413-7752, and we'll help you cure it. We won't stop fighting until every vote is counted.
And we'll put that link down below so you can click on it.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Cenk. AOC also took this as an opportunity to call out Democratic leadership for putting their weight behind Cuellar instead of supporting Cisneros. She says, on the day of a mass shooting and weeks after news of Roe, Democratic Party leadership rallied for a pro-NRA anti-choice incumbent under investigation in a close primary. Robocalls, fundraisers, all of it. Accountability isn't partisan. This was an utter failure of leadership.
That's an excellent tweet. So I appreciate that she's finally calling out the other side. Nancy Pelosi and Democratic leadership are not on our side. They are much more of our enemies and our opponents than Republicans are, because we can't even get to the Republicans because the corporate Democrats are so goddamn corrupt. They drown us in money. I'd love to fight Republicans if Pelosi would get out of the way. Now, look, that's a good start. She's saying leadership. Name names.
Yes.
It's Pelosi and Clyburn who are doing it.
That's right. And look, I think part of the problem with someone like AOC is that she doesn't understand how much power she has outside of the Democratic establishment. How everything she does gets a lot of attention, okay? So while corporate media might tut her for speaking out against the disgusting greed, corruption, and fecklessness of Democratic leadership, the people are on her side. And she should remember that, and she should fight like hell.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna say one more thing. The reason we're even more animated today is because it was such a close election that if Pelosi and Clyburn and all the others didn't pour in all that money for the robocalls and the fundraisers, et cetera, there's absolutely no question that Jessica Cisneros, who is a great Democrat, who actually agrees with the Democratic agenda, would have won. She would have won, there's no question about it. Pelosi and Clyburn swung the election. Now, the reason we tell you that she should have named them is because the press loves drama.
Exactly. When she called out the corruption of Joe Manchin, what happened? That was a great moment. Because all of a sudden you have Dana Bash on CNN asking Manchin about his corruption to his face on the set. That's powerful.
Exactly. If instead of saying generically Democratic leadership, which by the way is a good start, okay? I'm not trying to nitpick here. But if she said Nancy Pelosi, I guarantee you it would have been national news.
Totally.
Everybody would have been talking about AOC versus Nancy Pelosi. Oh my God, that's such drama.
You know who wasn't afraid of the corporate media and actually loved the negative press that he would get from them? Donald Trump. He played them like fools. Guy is vicious, he's awful, can't stand him. But he knew how to play the media. And progressives like AOC could do the same, but to do it for good rather than to enrich themselves, which is what Trump would do.
By the way, I mean, look, again, I'm gonna keep it real. Overall, that's a good start, but as you were setting that up, I thought, you know who called out all these politicians by name? Every one of those progressive legislators before they won. They were on this show calling out all those people by name, and then they won, and all of a sudden, colleagues. So
they're not your friends.
They're not your friends. They're not our friends. They're not women's friends. They're not dead kids' friends. Okay, they will do anything for money, 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 money. And if that's rude, who cares? It's true. The more important thing is that it's true.
Can you imagine how fired up the progressive base would be if we're so desperate for the fight, and we feel so abandoned right now? I mean.
But you have to have courage, because if you say, hey, it's Nancy Pelosi's fault, yes, she's not wrong. The rest of the press will pick a side instantly. Everyone in mainstream media will blame AOC. They'll say, oh, she's causing dissension. Wait a minute, but Pelosi funding Cuellar against the Democratic agenda, why doesn't that cause dissension? No, leadership and corporate Democrats are allowed to do everything. They're allowed to punch us in the face. But if we say, hey, can you please stop punching us in the face? They're like, it's your fault, right? And I know they would do that to AOC, I know that. But that's why, guys,
wear it as a badge of honor and don't apologize.
And by the way, for all the progressives, and I don't want to pick on AOC, she's the one that's leading here, okay? She's the one that actually bothered to call out Democratic leadership. So that's a good thing, right? But all the progressives in Congress, they should do it together, stick together. It's a new novel concept, okay? And then name names. And then when the mainstream media attacks you, be okay with it. You know who the mainstream media is? They're not your friends either. You remember when you were on the show?
Everyone hates them. Like everyone hates corporate press.
Yes.
So wear it as a badge of honor.
Why are you so afraid of them? When you were on this show, when you were all running, you called out the mainstream media. Then you get in office and now you don't call out the mainstream media. Yes, they're going to attack you. Invite that attack. Because in that, you know what'll happen? Because in that giant drama and soap opera that'll happen, the word will get out. Nancy Pelosi backs someone who's anti-choice and pro-guns.
Exactly, bingo.
And you know what the voters will think? Wait, why'd she do that? I didn't know that.
That's a little messed up.
You know that none of the voters know that? Unless you're progressive and you watch progressive media, the mainstream media has done a perfect job of making sure that word doesn't get out to anyone. I guarantee you, moderate Democratic voters would be shocked if they found out that Pelosi was funding Cuellar's race. They wouldn't even believe you. You'd have to tell them, look it up, and they'd be like, oh my God, it's true. The reason they don't know is because corporate Democrats and corporate media covers it up. It's your job to break through that so that we can actually get the truth to the American people. Once they hear it, they'll be on our side. It's so obvious. You just have the courage to do it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.